Welcome back. You're watching Newsmaker Live with me, Kindal Berton. My guest this evening, Dr. Claudius Preville, the Managing Director of Preville and Associates Consulting Group. Before the break, we were talking about the government's attempts to woo Taiwanese investors to Saint Lucia and the possible advantages of doing that. You were saying that the EPA might prove to be one way of doing that?
I mean, obviously, for example, I heard the Cuthbert Didier talking about opportunities in yachting. And absolutely, that's one sector that the Europeans have intensive interest in. And so if the Taiwanese were to get involved with us and help boost that sector, opportunities can be exploited in the EU market by way of the European yachts persons coming to the region and making greater use of yacht facilities in Saint Lucia and in the other islands. So the opportunity is there.
Okay, we have a call. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
To you, Kindle, and your guest, Dr. Preville. A very interesting topic tonight, and also a very interesting approach. Kendall, one of the questions that you did ask Dr. Preville is to give his opinion by way of an assessment of the performance of the government so far regarding the economy. And Dr. Preville is well known in circles of the United States for his career. Always attempted to marry one with the other.
You're breaking up a bit, caller.
That is the problem that I have. What I would like Dr. Preville to do in an attempt to be fair and balanced is to think about some of the good things as well as some of the negative, whereas just bringing out the negatives, which seems to suggest that sort of bias that he continues on every program. And I have challenged him before, and I'm going to challenge him again. I would like to hear Dr. Preville articulate, bringing out,
Caller, can I interrupt? Caller, I think I want to interrupt you right there, because why don't you point out to me which of the economic indicators you would like me to speak about that government has done very well in? I mentioned GDP growth. I'm quoting the government statistical data. Growth is languishing, all right? Inflation is moderate, 5% or thereabout. Unemployment is rising. These are not stories, caller. These are facts.
You see,
so tell me the indicator. Tell me of the indicator.
I will give you an indicator.
Yes, tell me.
Which an indicator which flashes right in your face. Let us look at the figures in relation to tourism. I mean, when we bring these blanket things and say, well, okay, this and that and so on, whereas we are not doing as well as we would like to, but there are positives. When we make it seem all doom and gloom, that is why it is always a difficulty in returning after some time to say certain things. A while ago, I heard you refer to the STEP and the NICE program as artificial jobs.
And that is what they are.
How it is not what they are? Are you saying to me that it is not important to, for example, where the same country that we speak of attracting our tourism being our mainstay of the economy and so on, it is not important, for example, to clean our roadsides, to clean our drains, to make the country look presentable?
Caller, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't clean the streets.
Echelons of society that we need. There are some people who they do not have the ability to engage in jobs like yours and other people. It is unfair to suggest that the STEP program and the NICE program, where you have people going and care for the elderly, you have people doing all these very meaningful things in society that a lot of people will attest that has done wonders in terms of bringing relief to them and so on, in terms of putting bread on the table, in terms of you know, doing the things that we take for granted when we pass on the roadsides and we see they are so clean, it looks so presentable, and people make those remarks, you know. For us to now turn around because of our political bias, to put it in the sense that, boy, look, this is the worst thing that government is doing. How do you expect government to respond when, say, for example, the private sector is in a bind? If the private sector now cannot take up the slack, is it not the responsibility of the government to do this? I mean, come on, man, let us... you know what I'm saying?
Thank you very much. I think we get the gist of what you're saying. Let's give Dr. Preville a chance to respond. Yeah, thank you very much.
Listen, I don't understand the caller's point of view. You asked me about the economic situation, okay? And I want to say something also about the issue of politics. This guy who just called is a political party hack. He does not listen to facts. And you know one of the things, by the way, before I respond, one of the things I would like to see happen on the talk shows in Saint Lucia, all the talk shows, is that I want to hear more informative people contribute to talk shows, not party hacks. You understand what I'm saying? Whether it's UWP hacks or Labour Party hacks. Because I hear too much of it. Uninformed people who've not read, who know nothing about subjects, call and make ridiculous statements, which is not adding to Saint Lucia's growth or Saint Lucia's direction as far as I'm concerned. The point I am making, and I'm the first to say, I am sympathetic to those on the step, on the smiles and nice and all these programs. But these programs are coming at a cost. Are they artificial jobs? Yes, they are. They are artificial jobs to the extent that they are not really adding any productive activity, value to Saint Lucia. Okay, so they are artificial jobs. Are they also in creating a problem, a long-term fiscal sustainability problem? Yes, they are. We have to face it. I'm not saying they may not be nice from a social point of view to provide relief, but it's coming at a cost. And this is what the caller and callers like him are missing. We have to get it right. And so instead of the step that says, here is a loaf, I would advocate a kind of a step that says, let's build a bakery. I don't think he'll listen to that part of my commentary when I spoke earlier.
Okay, let's take another call. Good evening, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Good evening to you and your guest.
Good evening.
Dr. Berton, you are an economist?
No, Dr. Preville.
Dr. Preville, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have reason to read any publication from Paul Krugman?
Oh, yes. Krugman was one of my mentors when I did my PhD.
Okay. Have you been following the Japanese government program for the last 5 years?
Not very closely, but let's hear from you.
You have?
Not very closely, but let's hear from you.
Do you know that they have a policy? Well, the policy, you know, well, you said not closely, but I thought you should have. Do you know their policy, right? I have to go back to the STEP program, but let me get that clear. Do you know they have a policy where they were printing money because they print their own money, right? And pass it through their central bank, right? And loan it to businesses with no interest, zero interest rate.
Yes.
They did not have a cost to their central bank.
Can you repeat what you just said, sir?
Do you know that the Japanese central bank was printing money and loan it to business, right? Big businesses in their country at a zero interest rate.
Okay, what's your point?
Right. Now, let us go back to the United... I'm coming back to Saint Lucia just now, but I just want to establish my foundation.
Try to speed it up, caller. Speed it up.
Yes,
you have a talk show. You don't want people to make their contribution. You tell them, speed it up.
Yeah,
Let me make my
we
contribution.
have a limited amount of time. Speed it up.
Let me make my contribution.
Make your point.
Right. Do you know what has been happening in the United States for the last 6 years or 10? No, about 7 years. The Fed has been printing money, right, and loaning it to business at almost 1 and 1.5% interest rate. Do you know that?
Yes.
Right. What stimulates an economy when it's not doing well? Mr. Preville.
What will stimulate the economy? For me, it's not monetizing the economy. That's not stimulating the economy.
What
Printing money. So printing money could result in inflation. What I think the best stimulant is to cut taxes. High taxes discourage production, and when you have problems with economic growth, you need to find ways to stimulate growth, and the only way is to cut taxes. You cut taxes, you reduce the cost of production, and you reduce the cost of consumption, so larger volumes are consumed and produced.
Mr. Preville, you don't know it's the consumer consumption. The consumers are the one who stimulate the economy, spending.
But of course, but can they spend if the prices are too high?
But I give you 2 examples of spending, right? Where the economy, the American economy, right, is projected to grow by 3% this year. That is because of spending. Now, I deliberately ask you whether you have been following Paul Krugman, because Paul Krugman,
he has a column. I know he has a column in the New York Post. Yes.
Basic, right? Basic is spending. You cannot stimulate an economy without spending, right? That's why I bring the Japanese situation to you, because we look at these international countries, right, before we make. Now, the STEP program, let me go back to the STEP program, because I wanted to lay my foundation, right, just to prove to you that what you said is not correct. The STEP program, what it does, right, it stimulates spending. When the government invests in the STEP program, it invests in Saint Lucia, you know, because those people, when they get pay, right, they go to the merchants right here and purchase school books, just name it, educational supplies, food, clothing, right? Those same merchants use that same money to import from abroad. The government make it, right, through taxes. You understand what I'm saying?
Is it, but my question to you, is it sustainable?
Of course it is.
It is not.
It is.
What is the source? Do you know what a treasury bill is, sir? Do you know what a treasury bill is?
I do not know what the treasury bill is.
You do not know?
Bill?
You do not know what a treasury bill is? I think you should probably end the conversation. When government gets its money, when government gets its money by issuing $50 million worth of treasury bills, you know what that means? Government is taking a loan, okay? Government is taking a loan. So you are telling me, you know what your economics is? Let me tell you what your economics is. Your economics is to borrow money from a bank to buy loaves of bread and hand it to people. Do you think that is sustainable?
But it has been done.
It's been done by who? You misunderstand the Japanese model completely.
That's how it works.
This is not what it is, sir. Okay?
Listen, it has been done in the past. If you go back to history, you realize that after the Great Depression, the Japanese government give $100 bills to every single Japanese.
This is not what it is.
After the tsunami there, the Japanese government paid salaries, paid airfare for 10,000 people from all over the world just to come to Japan to say that the Japan is safe, that they can tourists can come back to Japan. There is a cost in spending, right? But if you spend money correctly, you can make money out of, because that's what it is. You must spend, and that's what I always follow. That's why I follow Paul Krugman so closely.
But you should. I think you should spend some time and study economics first before you follow Paul Krugman.
Thank you very much, caller. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, there is not much to respond to, because the caller does not really understand the way an economy functions. And anyone who tells me, I gave him a very simple example, you borrow money to consume, you have a problem. You borrow money to stimulate consumption. That's what you do. You borrow money to create productive capacity. That's what you do. But you borrow to consume, you're creating more debt for yourself. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. You talk about Krugman, let's talk about Milton Friedman, another name I know you're familiar with.
He's a monetarist.
Right, and he is the author of a book called Free to Choose.
That's right.
Right. Also, we have another call. I'm going to take that call and we're going to Mr. Friedman. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hey, all right, Mr. Preville. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Preville.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead with your contribution.
I'm saying that the nice program doesn't benefit people. I don't think it's a good thing to say, honestly. Because you are not in some people's position. I have a mother who suffered a stroke. That mother have a disabled son, and that mother have a mentally ill son. And then it's only the husband who has to take care, because I don't live with them. I'm a grown-up man and I'm at my home. Yes, I help in contribution. And I don't see, that it hurts me when people like you sit down there because you are an economist, you have a way of living, and say it don't make sense. Don't say it like that. You're hurting people.
In Mr. Preville's defense, he never said it doesn't make sense.
You see, you that host?
He did not say it did not make sense. And he said it more than once. Right? He said he was sympathetic to the step workers. He understood the theory behind it. He did not agree with it, that it was not long-term sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he did say it didn't make sense.
We have to do something to help the people that can't help themselves.
Caller.
That is the whole point.
Caller,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
I know Mr. Preville very well. He's from my area, Babono.
Okay.
And I know his political affiliation, so don't call people party hack. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about Milton Friedman.
Yes.
The author of the book Free to Choose, also an author of a letter to the President of Congress, supported by 500 economists, calling for the legalization of marijuana. I want to talk a little bit about that with you from an economist perspective, but let's take another call. Good evening. We're on the air.
Good evening again, Dr. Preville. I didn't get to ask my other question because the line, something happens with the line.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Are you aware of how much money people make on the STEP program?
No, I am not aware. You tell me.
I think the ordinary line workers make $750, and I believe the truckers or whoever they are, or the supervisors, make $1,500. Understanding the cost of living now, how much effect do you think that amount of money is going to have on an economy every 3 months? Because the STEP program runs every quarter. Either every 3 months or every 4 months, I'm not really very sure. Number two, when Obama became the president of the United States, they had this Great Depression. They were trying to get out. They were trying to create employment and economic activity. They built bridges. They employed American contractors. They tried to give incentives so American manufacturers could come back home. If the government of Saint Lucia is serious about creating economic activity, why then are they outsourcing bridge contracts to Matnik and not the local contractors to create local employment, local monies into the economy?
Call is breaking up.
And I know people who work on the STEP program, and they cannot afford to pay the light bill when they get the check because the light bill is over the check.
Can you repeat that last question? We didn't get you clearly.
The one about the check?
No, you mentioned something about outsourcing work to Martinique.
Construction.
No,
we lost you after
what
that.
I am saying is, if the government of Saint Lucia and the people that are backing up STEP, the people that are backing up STEP, left, right, and center, if they were serious about creating sustainable and substantial employment, they would not be outsourcing bridge contracts to Matnik firms, They would give it to the local contractors, so the local contractors can spend the money locally in the economy in St. Lucia. And they would not be stockpiling money to run elections just now. They would be spending the money. So when people calling and telling you STEP is great, STEP is great, STEP is great, ask them if they work in STEP. These are the people that get in the big contracts. But then the thing about it in St. Lucia is people do not understand their worth. If I can cut grass for 6 hours in the hot sun, then I am quite able to do other things. So, STEP is really labor intensive. If you can do that, you can do anything with a little training. So this is just a kind of propagation of ignorance on the poor people of this country to make them what they are, to remain where they are. Nobody gives you anything for you to grow. They give you something to keep you needy, keep you desperate, and you always want and you always hungry and always starving. This needs to stop. That was my contribution.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. And this is the thing. I've heard many people say, look, if you really want to use STEP, why don't you channel the funds in a manner that you actually add to value in this country? This is the thing, you know, this is the problem. So there's no impact. It's not, GDP is not growing as a result of the step, the way it is being done. If, for example, you had a number of step workers going and work on a banana plantation, you would have more banana plants being produced and exported. That would add to your GDP, okay? But cutting grass by the roadside, it beautifies, but it's not really adding. What's it adding to the GDP? It's not. So it's not a matter of just saying, well, look, there are people out there who are hungry, who need food and so on. I'm not saying do not care for the needy, you know, that's not my message. But my message is find sustainable programs. Government has to use more creativity and imagination to get things done. Don't choose the easy, cheap, short way of doing things that are just not effective and are just long-term, bigger burdens for the Saint Lucian economy.
Yeah. You have a call. Good evening, you're on the air.
And good evening, Kendall. Good evening, Dr. Preville.
Good evening.
I applaud you, Dr. Preville, for taking such a bold step this evening and to speak out and articulate on the economic environment. I totally agree with you that these programs are not sustainable. But I think what you need to stress to the public is that while these programs are good, they have worked in the past, they are typical programs of social democratic parties in high global debt situation. These programs are not sustainable, and you need to stress that. We need to understand we are operating in scenarios of high global debt, which is not recoverable, not in the long run. So these programs need to be balanced with stimulus to the private sector, who is the engine of growth, to stimulate the economy. You need to stress that, and I think it's time the public and the nation understands this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Thank you very much. This is precisely what I've been saying. You see, because, you know, people are reacting to my comments in a very emotional way. We're talking economics. We're talking economics. The long-term viability of this thing makes no sense. That's it.
Now let's take another call. Good evening, you're on the air. Hello?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, Dr. Preville, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Dr. Preville, I have something I think I need you to elaborate on. In as much as I'm one who is not, I'm not totally against the step program for one simple reason, because at least it is putting bread on the table for some deprived persons in the various communities. But I think what we need to look at is the cost of the STEP program. Just imagine you have about 10 people cleaning at least 100 feet of roadside on a daily basis at a cost of $600 or more. Does that make any economic sense to the country? I want you to elaborate on that, Famila, because some people are calling and saying about, you know, oh, you're against STEP and STEP is this and STEP is that. It's the cost effect of STEP. Because you could pay on a monthly basis, or let's say a half-month basis, $600 to one individual who would clean at least half a mile of road. But on a daily basis, you have 10 step workers packed up in one little, like I said, less than 100 feet of roadside. At the cost of $600, you know, to the country a day.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense at all.
Yes.
I believe the way if the government is really serious about STEP, what they need to do is, look, you measure it. I give you, one person, 50 feet of road. That's a job for you for the day. But when you pack 10 people up together, most times you pass on the Castros Road Highway, you will see 10 people bundle up every 5 minutes. They stop and sit and eat and talk, and you know, by the time you pass 1 o'clock, they're gone to their homes.
That's right.
It's a cost. It's not necessarily the program. It's the cost incurred by the country. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks for calling.
Thank you for that caller. And I think I would say it's both the cost and it's what it's doing to the mindset of the people, because it's a form of slavery. Because people are being trained to be lazy. People are being trained to be unproductive. And I suppose that the long-term effect of all of this is more crime, because we have a culture now in Saint Lucia where everything is instant gratification. Everybody want to have the fanciest this and that and the other overnight. More theft is happening because they can't find the money to finance some of those things. We have to be very careful. STEP is not sustainable.
Yeah. Let's take another call. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, good day.
Hi.
Good evening.
I want to make a contribution. I strongly believe that STEP is very progressive. I think that you are making a little out there.
Okay.
STEP could be a program where you can really involve the agricultural sector, the poultry sector, where you can have people into the theme of working with progressive, I would say, sources where they can do something for themselves and for country. I also believe that there are a lot of wastelands where the government could introduce a program where you can have agriculture 3 months crop, where they would have the same STEP people produce and have more or less a sort of a return from just what they plant, where they can sustain themselves for maybe the next 3 months in the STEP program. I also believe that the economy with STEP did help after the UWP regime, when the country was in a mess. Everywhere was like roads were covered with grass. We need to beautify our place, yes. We also need to have a fair and good economy, in the sense that people need to have the day-to-day funds to spend back in the supermarket, where the supermarket can reproduce, in the sense that they would more or less import. I think that the economy itself needs programs like STEP. I also believe that it can go a little further, because we need the trickling down of the dollar, a day-to-day expenditure. Because without that, we have a stifling country. I remember 3 months before the last election, people almost starved because nothing was happening. It was seized. The country was seized. The money was going one place. One set of people was dealing with contracts, and the contracts were going nowhere. It was just like, my partner, my brother, I have a contract for you. Come to my office. And the money was just one place. I must say that this government, in spite of whatever is happening right now, we can see a little light behind the dark cloud. And I believe we have to look at the poor man just like the man with the PhD, because without the poor man, the PhD man makes no sense, because you need the scavenger just like you need the doctor.
All right, thank
you,
One
of the things I wish Saint Lucia would really have again, I wish that they would understand the system of the Cuban system, where everybody would get the minimum wage, that the doctor or the lawyer or the man on the streets would have his salaries, their salaries would be almost like average, where everybody would be able to go and buy a pair of shoes, buy sugar or whatever. Everybody will be on more or less the same level.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. Yeah.
Is there anything from what the caller said? I think the one point he was trying to make, it was a point I was already making, which is, if STEP resources are channeled through, for example, an agriculture farm, Yes, I would agree with it. So if you refashion it, don't tell me you're cutting grass by the roadside. It's not doing anything for anyone. Maybe if you tell me you use the step money to you create a freshwater shrimp farm, or you create a banana farm or whatever, and you actually add into the GDP, that I think that's a good thing. Yeah. Otherwise, if there is no real value added, you just creating an artificial job. It's not a real job, just a way to give people money in their pocket.
Yeah. Before we end, let's go back to Milton Friedman.
For the third time.
Yes. Replacing prohibition with a system of taxation and regulation. We've heard it being discussed at the CARICOM level now.
Right.
Easing up legal restrictions on marijuana.
Right.
Where do you stand on that issue? Is that a route that we want to go in?
You want to take me in that direction?
You want to go there?
I don't believe in... I'll tell you what, though. I know you have your advocates for, freeing the trade in cannabis. We have a whole party that is centered around this whole discussion in Saint Lucia. I don't think this is really, we have to ask ourselves a question. From an economic perspective, there is a demand. If there is a demand, it makes sense to supply. What is not clear is, from a moral perspective, is that what we want to do? Are we 100% convinced there are no health hazards? Are we 100% convinced that there are no major adverse implications from promoting consumption of narcotics? So I think this is what we have to reflect. But if you say from a pure demand and supply perspective, it makes sense.
Okay, we have another call. Final call for the evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Mr. Berton, Dr. Preville.
Good evening, sir.
I was enjoying the program because it was so very educational until it deteriorated into a discussion on STEP.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I understand, many people are very emotional about it. I have my own views personally. I think that in its present form is one of the worst things, because I think it is designed to keep people poor and needy, as another caller mentioned. But I certainly appreciate the education that you are giving to the public, and we need more of this kind of discourse. Dr. Preville, you have shown to my mind that you have mastered your stuff, and I want to say congratulations. Keep it up, and I do hope that you are able to come back, whether on this program or another program, because we here in this country need to have the level of debate elevated. We need to move away from, the kind of petty, little petty tit for tat that we saw there. You made some statements, and frankly, when you said it, I said, "Oh, the calls will come," and it's sad.
Yes.
It is sad because it says to us that we are not trying to raise the level. You made a remark at one point that it's about the intellectual capital. That is what is going to make the difference. I was particularly impressed when you mentioned that it was not about the physical resources.
That's right.
And then you mentioned Japan. And then I realized that you are so right. Then you contrasted Guyana, which has, by contrast, so many physical resources. So these are the kind of things we need to understand in this country and act upon it. So I hope that you and others like you are able to come out and take the bull by the horns, say the things that need to be said, not necessarily the things that would be the most popular, but to make the comments that need to be made to educate the people and for us to understand that, yes, there is hope somewhere on the horizon. Just because we may not be going in the right direction now does not mean that there isn't a better way for us. Thank you, Dr. Preville.
Yeah, thank you very much, caller.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Dr. Preville. We're out of time, unfortunately. There's a lot more I wanted to talk to you about. Hopefully, you will accept my invitation and the last caller's invitation to come back with us another time.
Sure. And I think it was really nice chatting with you. And we need to do more of this. And I want to say, personally, I want to see us elevate the dialogue. As the caller just said, we need to elevate it. And it is sad that we got all those calls on STEP and people essentially politicizing things. We must understand, we're talking about a fiscal crisis. We're talking about a debt crisis we have in Saint Lucia right now. And people refuse to even want to listen to the fact that, hey, this is making it worse. This is making it worse. How do we make things better? Let's discuss. Let's have dialogue. Forget which political party. But the moment you start a discussion, everybody talk about political parties. We have to really bury the hatchet on political parties, because I think somehow they're doing a lot more damage than good to Saint Lucia. And we have to find a way forward. The way forward is really in services. The next thing I want to talk about is to have a new services sector policy and expansion plan for Saint Lucia. That's the future for us.
Well, let's hope we can talk about that the next time you come back.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks
again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for watching. Thanks for calling. Those of you who called, join us next week for another program. I'm Kindal Berton. Our guest this evening, Dr. Claudius Preville. We'll see you next week.